There's no reaction from Trump. His eyes appear closed as Cohen identifies him. So Michael Cohen, Donald Trump's former attorney, is currently in the process of testifying in the Manhattan trial where Donald Trump is facing 34 counts of falsifying business records, of course with the end goal of influencing the results of the election. And Cohen has previously alleged that Trump directed him to make that payment to Stormy Daniels in the final days of the 2016 campaign. Now we get to hear more of Cohen's side of the story, and I want to break everything down for you so you guys are ready to combat this right-wing disinformation that we're about to see online. But first, let's take a look at this posse that Donald Trump has in the courtroom around him. Or while heading into the courtroom, rather. Look at this video where in the background you see just some of the worst people. You see Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, you see Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville, Eric Trump is there, I don't know if you can see her, but Alina Habba is there. Donald Trump really assembled the MAGA Avengers, just the worst of the worst people, to stand behind his shoulder awkwardly while he talks to the camera about this being a rigged trial and a witch hunt, and he shows them printed out news articles like he has been over the past few weeks. But to get into this trial, some really quick backstory. Michael Cohen was the longtime attorney of former President Trump before he occupied the Oval Office. Cohen had been one of Trump's closest allies, famously pledging years ago that he would take a bullet for his then boss. I'm sure you're familiar with this if you watch MeidasTouch frequently, but the relationship deteriorated after the start of Trump's presidency and broke down fully in public view after Cohen released a recording in which he and Trump can be heard discussing how they would buy the rights to former Playboy model Karen McDougal's story about an alleged affair she had with Trump years earlier, which Trump still denies. So as Cohen entered, his eyes were darting around the gallery. Michael Cohen entered the courtroom, he was facing forward and his eyes were darting around the gallery. Cohen then started talking about his background, saying he'd been married for 30 years, etc., and Trump was not reacting at all. CNN reads, Trump isn't reacting yet to hearing his former fixer testify on the stand. Donald Trump is looking straight ahead as Michael Cohen begins testifying. So obviously some interesting dynamics going on here. Trump might be a little bit nervous about what Michael Cohen's about to say. He might feel a little bit uneasy. There are a lot of reasons he could be looking straight forward and refusing to look at Michael Cohen. But Cohen then stands up and identifies Trump. Michael Cohen asks if he sees Donald Trump in the courtroom. Cohen leans to his right, stands up and identifies his former boss as wearing a blue and white tie. There's no reaction from Trump. His eyes appear closed as Cohen identifies him. Cohen is speaking very evenly, calm, even tone. And this is good. The ability to lay out the timeline in a very relaxed manner is only going to bolster his credibility in the eyes of the jury. Cohen is also looking at the prosecutor, not the jury, as he testifies. He's looking at Manhattan prosecutor Susan Hoffinger. He has not looked over to the jury, which is also good because it can come off as quite performative when you're telling the story to the jury rather than talking to the person who's directly asking you questions. So he's playing all of his cards right. Meanwhile, Trump is leaned back with his eyes closed as Cohen talks about his hiring. Michael Cohen then clarifies that he worked for Donald Trump directly. Michael Cohen says he didn't work for the general counsel's office at the Trump organization. When asked by the prosecutor who he reported to at the time, Cohen responds, Mr. Trump. So he reported to Trump directly. And you're going to see how they're working to build up a case as I read more and more of these updates. Cohen says he would renegotiate bills on behalf of Trump. Cohen then describes renegotiating bills for Trump University. Trump University fell into trouble and approximately 50 vendors had not been paid, Cohen says. Classic Donald Trump, not paying when he's supposed to. Cohen offered to pay those vendors 20% of their invoices. All but 2 vendors accepted the offer. He had them paid within 48 hours of them accepting the renegotiated bill. When asked about the other 2 that didn't accept, Cohen said they just went away. Meaning you didn't pay them? Hoffinger says. No ma'am, Cohen says. So that really gives you some insight into Donald Trump's practices. He will refuse to pay someone, then offer to pay 20% of it, then pay that really quickly to shut them up. Trump continues to sit back with his eyes closed while Blanche leans forward as Cohen testifies. The jurors are watching intensely as Cohen testifies. Jurors are watching intensely, volleying between prosecutor Susan Hoffinger and Michael Cohen as he testifies. Many are taking notes, though not all. And here's where the prosecution really begins to build their case. Remember, the defense is going to argue that Michael Cohen paid Stormy Daniels out of the goodness of his heart and Donald Trump had no clue, that he was simply doing a favor for Donald Trump behind Trump's back. So the onus is now on the prosecution to prove that Donald Trump knew these payments were being made, not only knew, but directed Michael Cohen to make these payments. So you'll see how they build this argument right here. Cohen says he spoke multiple times a day to Trump. Eventually, Cohen moved to an office about 50 feet from Trump's office. He spoke to him every single day and multiple times a day. Cohen then says keeping Trump updated on his work was required. Prosecutor Susan Hoffinger asked if part of Michael Cohen's job was to keep Donald Trump updated on his work. It was actually required, Cohen says. Cohen says Trump would actually be unhappy if he wasn't provided with information immediately. Michael Cohen explains that Donald Trump wanted to always know what was happening. If you didn't immediately provide him with the information and he learned it in another manner, it wouldn't go over well for you, he says of his days working for the Trump org. So if you can see where they're heading right here, they're trying to prove that there was nothing that happened without Donald Trump knowing in the Trump org. Michael Cohen didn't do this behind Trump's back. He didn't do it as a favor without telling Donald Trump. Donald Trump had to have known about this because he likes to micromanage everything going on in the Trump organization. And Michael Cohen says as much. The next update says Trump was a micromanager about work of the Trump organization, Cohen says. Prosecutor Susan Hoffinger asked whether Trump was a micromanager. Yes, ma'am, Cohen said. Cohen then says it was fantastic working for Trump during those 10 years. Michael Cohen continues to recount his experience working for Trump. It was fantastic, Cohen said. Working for him, especially during those 10 years, was an amazing experience in many, many ways. There were great times. The prosecutor then asked whether Michael Cohen would sometimes lie for Donald Trump. Yes, ma'am, Cohen says. So they've already really hammered home that point that nothing happens at the Trump org without Donald Trump knowing about it. And that is the argument they need to prove in order to show that Donald Trump knew about the payments and, again, directed the payments to happen. Cohen then testified he would sometimes bully people. After the prosecutor asked him if he would, Cohen says, yes, the only thing that was on my mind was to accomplish the task to make him happy, he says, in reference to Donald Trump. Now, CNN provides their own analysis by saying it will be interesting to see how the jury reads Michael Cohen's tone towards his former boss. On one hand, Cohen testified that he sought praise and wanted to make Trump happy, but on the other hand, he testified that he clearly viewed Trump as a micromanager who runs the show and assigns tasks. And it's funny to see how everybody who works for Donald Trump or around Donald Trump begins to pick up his mannerisms. So Donald Trump is a bully, and he's sort of forceful when he's doing business, both as a businessman or as the president, and you see Michael Cohen beginning to pick up those features of being a bully in the same way that you see Republican politicians now picking up these bully tactics from Donald Trump. I mean, calling other people nicknames. That really didn't happen before Trump got into office. Now you see mainstream Republicans doing that every single day. Cohen then says he and David Pecker had a good relationship. Michael Cohen is speaking about his relationship with former American Media Incorporated chairman David Pecker. When asked if he would say he had a good relationship with Pecker, Cohen said, I would, yes. I spoke with everybody by phone, email, and in person, Cohen said. Cohen said he also communicated with Dylan Howard, who worked for Pecker. Cohen said that Howard worked for Mr. Pecker to the same extent I worked for Donald Trump. Cohen then talks about Donald Trump considering running for president in 2011. The prosecutor is now asking about Donald Trump's consideration of a presidential run in 2011, which Michael Cohen says he took to Trump when he saw an article with a poll saying 6% of people thought Trump should be president. According to Cohen, he said it's interesting, we should look into it. Cohen says they looked into it and created a website that posed the question if Trump should run for president. Trump didn't run in 2011, obviously, Cohen says. There were several large real estate projects that he had acquired, as well as another season of The Apprentice. As Mr. Trump told me, you don't leave Hollywood, Hollywood leaves you. Cohen is choosing his words very carefully as he describes the 2011 discussion. He is pausing between words, prolonging the sentence. It's very, very interesting to me that Donald Trump was considering running in 2011. This has been something that's been on his mind for decades, obviously, and maybe Michael Cohen was the one who reignited, who sparked that interest in Donald Trump and caused him to run in 2016. Just a few more updates for you guys. Cohen appears calm from on the witness stand. Michael Cohen appeared relaxed on the witness stand as he gave his high-stakes testimony Monday morning. morning. Initially, Cohen sat with his hands close to his body, almost as if he was sitting on them, but as he continued the testimony, he placed them at his side on the arms of the chair. He spoke slowly in a very measured tone, occasionally chuckling to himself as he recounted some stories. Cohen's demeanor and pacing indicates that he had been prepped by the prosecution to wait for the question and answer only that question. Trump told Cohen he was worried about stories about his personal life coming out. Michael Cohen says Donald Trump worried about stories about his personal life as he weighed his run for president. Michael Cohen says Trump told him, "You know that when this comes out," meaning the announcement, "just be prepared, there's going to be a lot of women coming forward." And again, Cohen has not yet looked at the jury as he answers the prosecutor's questions. So, that was about the past hour summarized in a 10-minute video. There's going to be a lot more that happens today, tomorrow, throughout the rest of the week. So if you want to see more, make sure to leave a like, comment a blue heart if you made it this far, subscribe for more content, turn on that notification bell. Most importantly, have a great Monday, everyone.